welcome to ScreenTalk. We're your hosts, Richie McGuigan and Michael Wipf. On this podcast, we will dive into everything film and TV. All right, that's good. Today, we're going to talk about our favorite top 5 films up to this point. And basically, we set up 5 criteria points that we needed to think about before we graded them and ranked them. And they are entertainment value, rewatchability, storytelling and plot, characters and character development, and music. So, Michael, why don't you start off and say your number 5?
Okay. So I was looking at a few different movies. Obviously, it's kind of hard to do a good top 5. And it always kind of changes. So I know we're technically doing all time, but there's a few movies that I've also just seen a lot recently, so they're like fresher in my head. But for top 5, for number 5, I was between 2 different movies. That's why I'm struggling.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I wrote down this French film from the 50s called The 400 Blows. It's a really good movie, kind of like an art house movie, avant-garde, and it follows a boy as he kind of starts to delve into crime, like petty crime, and eventually some bad things happen to him. But for me, like, the thing that sticks out in that movie, like, I can't necessarily relate, but there's something really raw about the acting and style of those types of movies that I really enjoy, and I think that's one of the best child performances that I've ever seen. I've only seen the movie once, but it's something that I need to watch again soon. But on another note, the other movie that I had as number 5 was Shawshank Redemption. So
yeah, that is also on my list. It's pretty high as well.
Those are all top 10. So, I mean, I love that movie. I've seen that more, so I do have more to say about Shawshank. But
Yeah.
I think 400 Blows, just also to switch it up, since you also had that. That's a really great movie, and black and white. But yeah. So
I find it very interesting that you saw the movie once and you put it on your list.
Yeah, it's usually I don't do that, but I remember having a big impact on me. But like, yeah, I need to watch it again, for sure. But all the other ones I've seen like at least like 3 times.
Impact you right away.
Yeah. Sometimes though, like you seeing it the first time can have a bigger impact, and then when you watch it the second time, it doesn't have the same impact.
Right.
But I feel like that one I know is good enough to. But yeah.
Yeah. So my number 5 is a pretty big one. It's The Usual Suspects. You'll notice on my list I have a couple with a big twist ending, like Shawshank is pretty high up there.
And Shutter Island.
Usual Suspects. I mean, I remember my dad talking to me about it a while back, and he's like, "You have to watch it. It's great performances. Kevin Spacey and Benicio del Toro, I think, is in it as well, and great characters. And I think just to touch on some of my criteria, I think entertainment value. It's a pretty engaging story, so that's a big thing for me. If I'm engaged the entire time and I keep asking questions, and especially in something like this, where it's like a mystery movie, where you're trying to figure out who this character is and who the villain is, and then obviously a big twist ending where the cripple ended up being the
Kaiser
mastermind.
Soze,
Kaiser Soze, and it was just making up everything when he was in that police offices and just picking information off the wall, which was an unbelievable twist. And then that offers rewatchability because you can then notice the things that he's talking about as he's mentioning them. So you did reveal for my number 4, but for Shutter Island for me, another one where big twist ending, and this one is more of a psychological thriller where it's like it deals with like drugs and how it's manipulating people's minds, and you're led one way the entire movie until you realize at the end that the main character was a patient on the island pretending, and he was believing that he was a detective, and it's revealed that he actually killed his family, which is why he was on this island. So another great one, and you can do your number 4.
Okay, yeah. We're just speaking on Shutter Island. Yeah, that's a great movie that I mean, besides the twist ending, and just like it's pretty different from most twist endings. It's, it's hard, especially nowadays. Like that's only came out in the past, like came out 2011 or 2010, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's hard to really be original. So I was impressed with that ending. But I mean, the last line of that movie is always sticks with me. Like the one where he's like, "Would you rather die a good man or live like a monster?"
Right.
So
right,
basically,
right, right.
like
Yeah.
showing that it worked out in the end, but he's choosing to
Yeah.
to
It almost teases you like he figured it out and he knows
yeah,
what
I
he's
think he
doing
did,
now.
and he's just, but he doesn't want to go on living knowing what
Yeah.
he did and what happened, and so
Yeah.
yeah,
But
but
it makes you think that like he knew the whole time. Like, was he doing this like the whole time, or did he come to a realization at some point?
I think he came to the realization at the end when they
Yeah.
reveal it to him. But yeah, so like this once again, this is a really loose ranking for me because it's honestly like these movies could be like interchangeable. But for number 4, I guess I have Lost Highway. I think it came out in 1997. It's one of my favorite movies, directed by David Lynch, who's like known for making really weird and kind of like dreamlike movies, and he like scratches a part of my brain that like a lot of other movies don't do. And some people hate his stuff, but it's either you hate it or you love it, I think, for the most part. It's not really an in between. But Lost Highway, along with Mulholland Drive, which is like considered his best film, sort of, but like they're all great. And he did Twin Peaks. I don't know if you know the show Twin Peaks.
No,
but
I've
if
heard
you've
of it.
heard of it, yeah. So that was like really iconic, and they have movies of that too. Lost Highway, just like kind of blew my mind, even though I had absolutely no idea what really happened in the movie. It's just more the atmosphere of the film and the way it made me feel. But now I've gone and watched it, I think 3 times. Yeah, or actually no, I think I watched it 4 times. But either way, each time still things don't make sense, and that's like intentional. But I think I've understood what may have happened in it a little more. But that's like the beauty of his films is like just always interpreting what's
Yeah.
happening in different ways. But Bill Pullman, I don't know if you've probably he's what is he? Isn't he? He's like in an Independence Day. He's Lone Star in Spaceballs.
Right. All right.
But
Okay.
so,
yeah. And Serpent in the Rainbow.
Yeah,
Serpent in the Rainbow.
yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. What am I saying? Of course. But yeah, so I like his style of acting because he's kind of like sort of monotone, like chill vibe, and in that movie, he's just like you kind of feel like he's like, what the hell is going on? And you're like right there with him. And I think he does a great job of that. But yeah, just everything about that movie, the cinematography, the whole, just it's very unique in terms of any other movie I've seen, and it's a movie that definitely leaves you thinking about it. If that's a good thing or a bad, like in a bad way or
I
a
would
good
say
way.
that's a very good thing.
Well, no, it's a good thing. I meant to say like
Thinking
if
about
it's
it
in
in
a
a good
bad,
way,
yeah,
yeah.
like, but I think for the most part, at least it's definitely something different, and yeah, it's one of my favorites. So
Yeah. For my number 3, it's my top 3. I think are so close, but they're all for kind of different reasons. I mean, Top Gun Maverick is my number 3. I just remember stumbling upon Top Gun 1 pretty late. I mean, it's my
yeah,
mom's favorite movie, one of him. And I remember watching that movie, I don't know, for the first time maybe a couple years ago.
yeah,
And I fell in love with it.
hmm
Because I'm like, Tom Cruise. I've already fell in love with him because of Mission Impossible and stuff. And I was like, this is just incredible. Like, the first one didn't really have like much of a story. It was really just epic jet scenes
Yeah,
and
it's more iconic
love
and like
story
yeah.
and but Top Gun Maverick really dove into uh it really expanded. First of all, it was a perfect sequel because it's 30 years and like that ideally that's how I would want to do a sequel, but like that's so unrealistic because you can't say, oh, this movie's going to be hit in 30 years from now.
Hmm.
We're going to release another one. It's going to
Right.
make $1 billion. But I just loved the cinematography of Maverick and the fact that they actually used jets with the actors
Hmm.
in them.
Yeah.
And Tom
I mean,
Cruise.
yeah, those scenes are pretty insane. Like
Yeah,
I haven't
like,
seen anything like
I
that.
mean, that's like the best like camera work and like just they use the best sets too. Like they just used an open desert
Hmm.
and then they actually flew through a canyon and all the actors again were actually in the jets.
Hmm.
For a second, I thought they were actually flying them, but then that would have been bad. But they were actually sitting in the back seat, and the pilot was sitting in
Oh,
the front
okay.
seat, and they had little. They actually made little IMAX cameras because they wanted everything in IMAX.
Oh yeah, so it could fit in there.
Yeah, so they put
That's
like
crazy.
I think three, so like two to the side of the actor
Right,
and
right,
one
okay.
right in front, so they can get obviously different shots of
Hmm.
but they had to make it so small so they can fit in like the tight cockpit.
Yeah.
And all the work that they did with that movie and then the execution was bar none.
Hmm.
It was a good story. It was a good obviously the cinematography was unbelievable, and yeah, it was my favorite movie for like
Hmm.
the longest time. I remember
Yeah.
when it came out, I saw it like 3-4 times in the theaters. Then once it was on digital, I bought it on digital and I watched it.
Sorry.
No, you're good. And yeah, and then for my number 2, I have Shawshank.
Hmm.
I just think I've only seen this movie maybe 2-3 times, but I think the story is just so unbelievably put together, and it hooks you from the second you start watching to the minute the twist happens, and you're like, oh my god, he got away with this, and he actually took this long. I think years progressed through the movie, and
Yeah, I think
you're
it's
like,
30 years or so.
yeah. So it's like it's unbelievable the patience he took, and it's just like whoa. And then you want to rewatch to see like the
Yeah.
little things he plants up, like the posters of the girls, and like the way he's hiding the hole that he's digging. It's just unbelievable, and I mean it's tough for me to put it ahead of Maverick. And one thing I also want to say about Maverick is the music. I'm a big music buff, and the music,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Shawshank also has a great score too.
Yeah, I have to check that out,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, Shawshank definitely
Yeah,
number 2.
overall one of the best endings to ever
Yeah.
grace film. Like and the twist as well as him finally going to meet him in Mexico and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
nice,
like
nice touch. And I'm actually, I like to say that even if like a bad movie progresses and if it has a good ending, it kind of makes the movie a little bit better.
oh yeah,
Or
but
if
it's
and
already
the opposite can happen if
exactly
it's a
yeah.
good movie and
There's a
bad
lot
ending.
of good movies I've watched and it really sucks because the last 5 minutes just like ruin it and you're like, damn, I
Yeah.
did like that movie a lot, but yeah, the ending, yeah, having a good ending is an important thing, obviously.
Yeah, but a good ending to a great movie,
Yeah, so
fantastic.
yeah, it's one of the best. That's my mom's favorite of all time. I mean, and it's one of mine, obviously. Yeah, so I guess do I say my third and
Yeah, just go 3-1, and I'll do.
so yeah,
my
I
two
just
one.
I just put this as my third. This movie, The Fall, it came out in 2006, and it is like no other movie I've ever seen. It's like really impossible, but pretty much to watch it anywhere unless you watch it illegally. But since it's specifically known for its like incredible cinematography, it's a movie that I wanted to watch in high quality, like with good image quality. So, basically, this movie's filmed in like over 20 countries. They don't use any set pieces, so all the locations they're filming at are all real places. And they basically it was like this passion project for this director, and he spent years and years like saving up money, and then finally like I think it took 5 years total to film, but on top of that, it was like already years and years to get all the rights to shoot in all these different countries and all that. So it's pretty insane. But yeah, for some reason the movie, since it was like made by him and by his studio, it wasn't like a wide release in theaters. Like most people don't know about it, which is a shame. But it was actually the whole reason I got a Blu-ray player for Christmas, because I specifically wanted to get that movie on Blu-ray so I could watch it, and now I did, and so now I've seen it 3 times.
Wow.
But it's a really basically it's about a dude breaks his leg doing he's a stuntman in Hollywood, and then he befriends this little girl in the hospital who broke her arm, and then he like starts telling her this like fantastical story about these like mythical characters, and then like reality starts to blend with real life, and I mean with the story, and it just, yeah, it's like overall a great message in the movie, insane cinematography, like stuff you'll never see in like any other movie.
That's cool.
It was inspired by these documentaries, or a big inspiration for the director was these like documentaries like Samsara, Baraka, that like kind of just like film the whole world without any narration. But that's like the most similar thing I can think of to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really great movie, and like I'm very happy I have it. I was like 50. The whole reason I got the Blu-ray player, this is going another topic real quick, but I had to get like a region free one because they have 3 different regions for Blu-rays, and the one I got was a region B1, so like European Blu-ray. And if I wanted to get because they do also have a region A for that movie, but it was like $120 opposed to this one was like 50, which is still a lot of money. So I'd rather have put that money towards being able to get a player that can play movies from any country or anything like that. So yeah, sorry to go off on that tangent. Should I say my second then?
Yeah,
Because
just go 2 then 1 because I
okay,
only got 1.
I'll keep it briefer than but that movie's just really cool because it's just like completely blew my mind. That for my second, I have this movie called Cloud Atlas. Another, once again, really underrated movie that like I think deserves more praise, but it's not for everyone. It's a lot going on, but it's based off this novel that's basically following these 6 different storylines, and they all are connected to one another in some way. And it's like they're all in different timelines. Like I think overall, from the first story to the last one, it's like it spans over 500 years or something.
Whoa.
And it's about like the idea of like reincarnation and stuff, and how like souls are reborn, and like whether or not you believe in all that, like it's still, I feel like there's definitely takeaways from that movie that like there's a lot of messages in that movie that just each time I'm taking away something new. I think I've seen it 4 times now. But just for example, like after the first time I watched it, I like immediately watched it right again that night, which like I usually never do. But I was like I don't know what the hell just happened, and like because there's 6 storylines simultaneously being told, and then all of the actors are playing different versions of themselves. So like Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, they're all in it, and they're playing 6 different versions, and they have different makeup on in the storyline, so it gets pretty confusing, but like that's why there's a ton of rewatchability with that movie. And it's also directed by the Matrix directors and this other guy, so like there's really good action, and it's funny too. Like it's very just a heartfelt movie, great performances. But yeah, that's one that really resonated with me, and I just watched it again recently, so yeah, that's why I'm putting it up there. But yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. And is that that was number 2, right?
Yeah.
What's your number 1?
Should I do that? Okay. So this has been my number 1 for a while. The difference between like these other movies, like, or at least the last 3, those are kind of movies like I'll watch a lot, and like I don't need to go through like, well, it is like an emotional experience, but this One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, is my number 1. That just like had a huge impact on me when I first watched it. It's right when I was getting into film, so like a lot of those movies that like were like got me more interested in film, which is like about 8th grade, I was really getting like obsessed with it, and that one just really stuck with me. The whole movie is different than anything I'd seen up to that point, and then the ending for me is like one of the most like bittersweet endings. Like it's more sad than happy, I'd say, but I think that's like great writing when you have an emotional ending where it's sad and you're also happy for a character, like. And I just remember like once again the soundtrack too really stuck with me, and like the final scene, like I'll just always remember like I got like goosebumps watching that.
Yeah,
And
I
so
love
like
that.
if you always like remember that feeling. So even though maybe it's not a movie I like would just throw on, or it's because it is sad and it's not like something I always want to watch, I'd say like I think it deserves to be in the number one spots. Jack Nicholson, he won the Oscar. That it won
Yeah.
Best Picture. The nurse, the main nurse, who's like complete bitch in the movie, she won the Oscar as well. So it's all around a great movie. And yeah, and it had a huge impact because it's all about like he's in a mental hospital, and it's about like whether or not he's should actually be there, and then on top of that, like how people are treated in the mental hospitals because it was in the 70s. So
Yeah.
because of that movie, it like actually had a huge impact on like they cracked down on a lot of that
Wow.
because of that movie, because it like exposed, like brought to light
That's
a lot
crazy.
of the bad stuff that was happening. So yeah.
Yeah. My number one is emotional for me, but not in a sad way. But Avengers: Infinity War. I am a huge Marvel nerd, and I think phases 1 to 3 are absolutely incredible. And I think that's the story arc that they created. Um, started planting seeds of Thanos early on, and then finally wrapped it up with part 1, part 2 with Infinity War and Endgame. Only reason Endgame is not up there, I think, because the first 2 hours is kind of just aftermath of Infinity
Hmm.
War, and then the last hour is really when everyone comes back
Right,
together
right.
and defeats. But the last hour is, I think, my favorite Marvel of ever
Oh,
in
okay.
Endgame, like the final battle,
Right.
the wrap up of the Infinity Saga. But Infinity War as a whole, I like movies where the heroes kind of lose.
Hmm. Yeah,
E-
no,
e- Even though it is a superhero movie and you know they're eventually going to win,
right.
but it's no fun to think of a movie like that. I like to be in the moment and be like, holy crap, they
Yeah.
lost.
It's like, sorry,
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, even though probably people had some idea they'd maybe lose in some form, I don't think anyone really was expecting it to happen the way it did. Like,
No, yeah,
yeah.
of course.
So
I never thought that they. I remember going into the movie thinking that Thanos was going to get away with like maybe 3 or 4 stones. Maybe like
mhm.
the reveal would be like he's close to the last one. Like, oh crap, he's
Yeah.
going to get it. But I never would have thought that he would have snapped and half of life would have been
Mhm.
gone after the first part. And I was like, crap.
Yeah.
I remember with like the music, obviously Alan Silvestri, one of my favorites composers
Mhm.
ever, him and John Williams. But I remember that last bit of music with like hinting at the Avengers theme
Mhm.
and like a very nice calm strings at the end. We're like,
Yeah.
"Holy crap, he actually won!" And
Yeah.
how are we gonna come back from this? How are we gonna defeat him? But I just think that this one just has holds a special place in my heart, and I just figured I can't not put it in one.
Yeah. It was quite an experience. Obviously, like I'll always remember going to the theater, like all with all my. I mean, it was like me and like maybe like 6 of my buddies. Like we all went, and the whole theater's full back then. Obviously, it's been doing better lately, but yeah. I mean that was. It's sad that it's not really like that anymore.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. I'm mad, but
but
I'm looking
it's
forward to
good
Deadpool.
to. I mean, that's what makes it more meaningful. Like that, it was can't have like 10 movies like that are all gonna be as like
Yeah,
crazy, and you
yeah.
know, so that was awesome that we got to experience that when it did come out.
Yeah, and that's something we can get into later.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah,
the
yeah.
rise and fall of the MCU.
Yeah.
Um, so this was the first episode of Screen Talk. Thank you guys for listening. You can find us on Instagram and
Twitter
Twitter.
or X.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please continue to listen, and thank you so much.
Thank you.